We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.
Good afternoon and welcome to yet another edition of Free Association Radio. I am Robert Phoenix. I'm your host. I'm your guide. I am the ringmaster today for your entertainment purposes and hopefully educational and enlightening at the same time. Today we're going to have on Man Called Clay, finally, after weeks of delay and frustration. He'll be here. He'll be on the show in the second half hour of the first hour. And then in the second hour, I'll be bringing on the amazing Ondi Timoner, who has probably directed two of the most important films most of you have never seen. However, if you have not seen them, don't wait. Go rent them. You can find them on Hulu, Hulu Plus. I don't think Netflix has it. I've tried to find them on Netflix. We should ask Ondi about that when she gets on the show. You can also find both of her films on Amazon. You can rent them for $3.99 for a 3-day period. The films I'm referring to are Dig and We Live in Public. And they're amazing films. And we'll get into that more. And we'll get into Ondi's latest project, which is called A Total Disruption, which is the compilation of over 300 hours, or actually not 300 hours, over 300, is more than 300 hours, over 300 CEOs, innovators, tech gurus, tech giants, tech geeks, the people that have shaped the internet, social media, social programming, as we know it. Ondi has been on the case, capturing them since the 1990s. So she has veritably the Alexandria Library of modern internet intelligentsia, and she's running. She's just launched a Kickstarter to get this thing up and running, so that this body of information has a place to live and people can access it. That's what she's doing. And so we're gonna have her on the show. We're gonna talk about that. And we're gonna talk about Dig and We Live in Public. We Live in Public is pretty remarkable. And we'll talk more about that when she gets on the air here. It came out just last year, so it's only been out a year. And trust me, you'll be blown away by both films, but We Live in Public will take you to a whole other place. So I actually have, let's see now, roughly 26 minutes now to kill until Clay comes on the show. I'm not really going to kill it. There's something I do want to talk about, and it's you know, the more I live, the more I realize that we truly are living in some kind of holographic domain, and the reason why I say this is because reality begins to line up in ways that it's almost inexplicable at times. And if you want to be able to navigate through this reality, it takes a little bit of moxie. It takes some will, some nerve. It also takes a lot of letting go at certain points. And well, I'll just tell you sort of how my morning has unfolded. And it actually has a connection with today's show. Because one of the things that Ondi captured as being not only a filmmaker, but a participant in the We Live in Public experience, which we'll talk more about when she gets on the air. But one of the things that Josh Harris, who the mad genius behind this, one of the things that he came up with was essentially the internet and technology will dominate our lives to such a degree that we will have absolutely zero privacy. Most people will give it up willingly for some kind of celebrity, and that everybody will have access to it. So there would be this sort of multi-dimensional, omnidirectional intelligence, spore intelligence at work. And as a result of this, there would be all of these nodes, and people would be broadcasting and filming and capturing and talking, and it would be accessible 24/7. And this is what he was trying to really capture in the We Live in Public experiment, and we're kind of there now, to be honest with you. Josh Harris, always ahead of the curve. He's always been ahead of the curve. And one of the things that he's really onto is the singularity. And he firmly believes that human intelligence will be surpassed by machine intelligence, and that we'll be relics at some point. We will be the hunted, not the hunters of this planet. We will no longer be at the top of the food chain. And based upon Josh Harris's track record, I would say that he's probably right. Also because of what I've been able to piece together in my own way. So let's set the stage for the rest of the show. I got up today, and here we go. I'm being confessional. This is the confessional part of my experience, which is the vicarious moment that we all get to tap into. But I don't care. I've always been slightly confessional anyway. So I get up this morning, and it's one of those mornings. I've got to get my kid to school. Got to make sure this is the whole school thing, right? He's doing this report. He's doing this report on the Wright brothers. It's like his first big report, And gone are the days, by the way, where you sat down and you wrote a report and you handed it in. Oh no, you can't do that anymore. You've got to follow all these different steps. You've got to have your research and your timeline and notes. And I understand that because they're trying to, wrap your kid's head around going to school. So he would do this in a very sort of trained, monkey-like fashion when he gets there. And I'm talking about secondary school. But there was almost a fascistic order with which they wanted all these papers. You had to put this in the front. You had to put this on the inside. You had to put this in the back. You had to put everything kind of in this order. And I thought to myself, what is this teaching him? Well, it's teaching him to conform. It's teaching him to obey. It's teaching him to understand that if somebody tells you where to put the paper, you will put the paper there. Because if you don't put the paper there, there will be consequences for you not putting the paper there. What is the consequence? The consequence is you don't get a good grade. If you don't get a good grade, what happens? you get admonished. If you get admonished, what happens? You get less love. If you get less love, what happens? You are less than. If you are less than, what happens? Well, then you cease to exist. You emotionally die. This is what happens. So I put this together for him, and I knew that I had to get him off to school. We stopped at this gas station, and it's a gas station by my house. It's a Shell gas station, just in case you were wondering. I have to go there. They have diesel fuel. I have a diesel car. And I go to get some gas and fill up my left tire, and I go in, and every morning there is this convoy of trucks with these very large trailers, and they take over that station for about 15 minutes. It becomes their world for 15 minutes. And if you want to get gas, forget it, because they don't just get gas. They're getting, these guys they're a big landscape company. They're headed out to Westlake, or they're headed out to Lake Austin to go manicure and trim multi-million-dollar homes for people that can afford an army of landscapers. Okay, so they're not only there to get gas for their vehicles, they're there to get gas for all of their toys, their leaf blowers, and their lawnmowers, and their hedge trimmers. Any power tool, they're getting gas for those things. And they're getting drinks and chips and, all kinds of really great stuff to put in their system. So when they get there, they take the whole thing over, and you can't get gas. You can't even go in the store to buy anything. It's really their experience for about 15 minutes, and you're SOL. If you got to get gas or you got to get something, you may as well go somewhere else. I don't mind that. Normally, I don't go there during that time. I understand it. But today, I needed the gas, and today I needed the air. And when I realized that it wasn't happening, I wanted to get out of the parking lot, and there was a truck that was parked in between the store and the pumps. And the pumps have the giant trucks with the trailers. I couldn't get out. So I kind of blew a gasket. I know. It's Aries. I'm going to blame it on Aries. Kind of blew a gasket. And I split. I went and I got gas somewhere else. I got air somewhere else. But it set the tone for my day. Agitation. So then I get online. I come back. Hold on. So then I go to the HEB. It's not the HEB. I have been corrected. It is the HEB. So I go to the HEB. If you don't know what the HEB is, it's a grocery store here in Texas. It's a big grocery store. In fact, it dominates Texas. There are no other grocery stores besides the HEB. Whole Foods got a foot in, but that's about it. California, it's deregulated. There's all kinds of grocery stores in California. But anyway, I'm really not complaining because I like the HEB for whatever it is. And so I go there. Now, in Texas, here in Austin specifically, you can't get a bag at the store anymore. So if you don't have a bag, you're shit out of luck. You can buy a bag for 25 cents or 95 cents or whatever they're selling them for. Or you can carry your stuff out by hand. So I have this Super Mario bag that I bring with me, and I've used it before. It's my kid's bag. And I thought, hey, I'm gonna skip the shopping cart experience, and I'm gonna use my Super Mario bag, and I'm just gonna put items in my Super Mario bag. So I'm walking around the store putting items in my Super Mario bag, and there's this woman who works at the HEB, and she's about 5'3". She looks like a character from a Sid and Marty Krofft kind of Saturday 70s TV show. You remember HR Puff and Stuff and all those shows? She looks like one of those people. She's got like kind of rainbow eyeshadow. She's probably in her late 50s, early 60s. She looks almost cartoonish, like Tammy Faye Baker had been her makeup model. So I'm walking around the store. She cruises around there in the morning. She's like the ambassador of the HEB. She's the madam of the HEB. So I'm looking to buy some hash browns. I'm trying to find hash browns that are not made by Ida because Ida is run by Monsanto, and I don't want their potatoes. And no, I'm not going to grate a potato to make my own hash browns. I don't really have that much time. I'm not that good at it. So I'm sticking. So I'm over there. I'm in the frozen food section. She walks up to me. She says, "May I help you? Or do you need some help?" And really, what she was doing is she was scoping me out because I had this bag and I was putting my groceries in the bag. I said, "No, I'm good, thank you. Just looking for frozen foods." And then I actually needed to find something else, so I did ask her, and she didn't really help me. She found somebody else to help me. But it was odd, I felt like I was being profiled. I was being profiled. But you have to ask yourself this question: if I was really going to steal groceries, would I just stick them in a bag like that? I mean, how stupid would that be? It's so obvious, right? So obvious. And then I went up to the counter, I pulled all my groceries out of the bag because I'm going to use that bag again. And then the woman who checked me out looked at me and she said, "May I have your bag?" I said, "Sure." And she made it look like she was actually going to put the groceries in the bag, but what she was really doing, she was checking the bag. It's okay. It's their store. So I left, groceries intact, in my bag, Super Mario. I come home, and I got into some interesting Facebook chats today. Very interesting. And one of the chats I got into was this guy he's actually been on the show. And he's a quote-unquote friend of mine, even though I've never met him. He did come to me one day proclaiming that he wanted to end his life in all sincerity. And so I took a good 45 minutes out of my life to bring him back into his body and talk him off that ledge. Maybe I should read the transcript that was sent to me today. This is the maybe I'll do this because we're really into the public experience, so to speak. I'll read you the transcript. Okay. Here it goes. This is because I am somebody who's out there, right? And I'm accessible. I'm on Facebook. People decide that they want to talk to me. And I get this text out of the blue. "You're very attractive for a straight guy." And he spells "you're" wrong. And I say, "Phew, thanks for the validation. Your pee-pee is prob huge, huh? All you dudes are." And I didn't know I didn't know where to go with that. This is not language I was used to with this guy. And I didn't say anything. And then he says, "Hello, pee-pee joke got you uncomfortable? Get over it, bitch. Ricky." And then I said, "Yeah, totally. In fact, so much I'm blocking you. Laugh out loud. Don't do that. You'd be missing out on so much entertainment." I replied, "If this is what passes for entertainment, I can't wait to see the rest. Trust me, it get better, hombre." And then I say, "Great, gotta run and whack my enormous schlong." And then he gets into something else. I got to tell you, it was weird. It was a weird series of interactions. So I noticed that he was kind of on Skype. So I said, "Hey man, are you texting me on Skype or on Facebook?" And he said, "No." I said, "Well, I think somebody hacked your account." And then there's this whole other dialogue that ensues. And I'm asking myself, why am I having this communication with this person? And then I realized, well, it's because of the internet. Because I connected with this person through the internet. He started off as a client. He wanted a reading. And then he wanted to get personal. And I actually had him on my show. And then I got kind of uncomfortable with what was happening. And I even wondered if it was really him. And I wondered if it was really him, then what was going on with him? I mean, now I'm spending all this time in my head trying to figure out and untangle this convoluted question and series of interactions with somebody I've never even met. Okay, and I'm like, wow, this is really crazy, totally crazy. And that's not the only thing that happened. I mean, there's some other things that happened. And I'm just asking myself, well, what is going on here? Where are we in the midst of this miasma of identity? And I don't mind it. I really don't mind it to a large extent, because something kind of unique is happening, at least as it relates to this show and what happens in the chat room and what happens in, to a certain extent, on my website. There's a really, I think, powerful kind of synergy that's taking place. But at the same time, I also understand that people are in places in their lives right now and that can be really tenuous. And we're living in a pretty tenuous world. I mean, this thing with North Korea, not going away. It's just not going away. The sabers keep rattling. You know, John Kerry is in Korea. You know, we're living with the shadow and the legacy of the Cold War threat, the one that was never put to bed after the Korean War had ended. And there are people who are attuned to this on a geopolitical level, meaning they're aware, right? They understand what's happening, and they understand that there's a very strong possibility that what's happening doesn't really match up with what we're being told, which are two different things. As a result of that, it produces a sense of uneasiness and anxiety in people. And those are for the people that are kind of tuned in and aware. Now, you don't have to be tuned in and aware. You can be a human that is connected to this experience, and you can have biosensors, and you can be a canary in the coal mine, and all of a sudden, your behavior is being altered by all these different things in your environment, whether it's the news, the perceived news, whether it's somebody that's in your life that's sick, whether it's your own illness, whether it's the economy, whether it's the lack of money, whatever these things are, now they're impinging upon how you interact and interrelate with people. And in some cases, could actually produce a type of social schizophrenia, where you can theoretically be one person online or one person offline, or you can be multiple personalities online. It doesn't matter. We're becoming these vehicles of fragmented selves. And that's kind of where we are. That's where we are right now. And I think some of the conversations that I actually had were, they were manifestations of that, or these bits of, it was so intense. I rarely ever turn Facebook chat off. I turned it off today because it was too much. And I think partly it was too much because I was dealing with this weird agitation that had started my day. I'm going to blame it on Aries. So where I'm going with all this is that here we have Ondi Timoner coming on in the second hour of the show, and Ondi was part of the We Live in Public experience, and also filming the Dandy Warhols and the Brian Jonestown Massacre in the movie Dig. Amazing, amazing rock documentary. And the thing that connects both We Live in Public and Dig is that Ondi spent large chunks of her life living with and being with her subject matter, the two bands in the movie Dig, and also Josh Harris in We Live in Public. So she immersed herself in her environment and her experience. But when We Live in Public, there is no privacy. There is no me. There is no you. We cease to exist. And so here we have today my experience where my boundaries were getting blurred, and who was who and what, and was the person even talking to me that person? And if they were that person, it felt to me as if I had contacted some possessed aspect of this person's subpersonality. Now we bring in a whole other kettle of fish. And then his life gets even more strange. I decided to spend a little time looking for Josh Harris online. Then I found joshharris.com and a book called Humble Orthodoxy. And it's amazing because this Josh Harris is he's an evangelical. And it's so odd because one of the things that he wrote he blogged this on April 1st. Now keep in mind that we're talking about the lack of privacy, the intrusion of a 24/7 panoptical experience called the internet, which theoretically, and this is what Josh Harris was getting into, was priming us to be observed all the time, both online and off. And I run across this blog post by Josh Harris from joshharris.com, this evangelical. And the post goes like this: outrageous example of loss of freedom. Most of the mainstream media isn't reporting this, but yesterday, President Obama signed Executive Order 4113, otherwise known as the Self-Portraiture Prohibition Order, which will allow the federal government to regulate the taking of photos of yourself in a mirror. This is an outrageous example of the government invading our privacy and stealing our freedom. Evidently, this order has been driven by the professional photographers lobby, who feel threatened by the growing trend of people taking self-portraits. Kevin Systrom, co-founder of Instagram, is asking Americans to stand up for their rights and oppose this measure. The prohibition of self-portraiture will effectively shut down Instagram, Systrom told AP News. Apparently, 99.2% of all pictures posted on Instagram are what are popularly known as selfies, pictures by people, most often women ages 14 to 26, who take pictures of themselves in their bathroom mirrors. The remaining 0.8% on Instagram are by people snapping photos of their own feet. It's not clear if the pictures of feet are affected by the order, but it's not just women who are outraged by the president's action. A considerable number of men who use selfies to show off their abs. Brian Jonestown of West Virginia, who works at Gold's Gym, says, Obama wants to take our guns, now our selfies. What's next? Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram are joining together their considerable online influence to organize the April 15th March for Selfies protest in Washington, D.C. We are hoping to gather 2 million people wielding their iPhones, snapping selfies, and declaring, we will not let the government send us back to the dark ages, says Rachel Allison, the march organizer. Please visit www.marchforselfies.com and help spread the word and tweet with the hashtag #SaveSelfies. On Facebook, please change your profile photo to a selfie with a V for victory sign to make a statement that you won't let big government take away your freedom. Oh, one more thing. Happy April Fool's Day. Okay, this is bizarre because here you have this Joshua Harris, and unless this is just a whole prank and it's the same Joshua Harris, which I don't know, based on the other Josh Harris's track record, it could be, but this Josh Harris actually is above that Josh Harris. There's a picture of him. They don't look like the same guy, but here we have this Josh Harris talking about, having your rights taken away, of taking your picture in the mirror, and oh, by the way, it's an April Fool's joke. So the universe has an extremely wicked sense of humor and sets the table for these things in a very unusual way. So that's where we are. Why don't we do this? Why don't we play a little music? And I'm going to play a tune, and then I think we have the elusive man called Clay on hold here. Let me just see what I've dialed up. All right, he sent me a track today called Bedtime Story. This is from Bringing, with ing at the end of bringing. And we're going to play this. Bedtime Story is what it's called. And when I come back, I'm going to push a button, and then I believe Man Called Clay will magically appear, and then we'll talk about his music. Here's Bedtime Story, Man Called Clay. I'll be back in 5 minutes and 10 seconds. So that was A Man Called Clay. The name of that track is Bedtime Story. All right. We started this epic quest almost a month ago, spurring on the elusive entity known as A Man Called Clay. And in between then and now, calamities, breakdowns, interruptions in communication have all deterred us from this moment. But here we go. We're about to have our time with destiny, in destiny, with A Man Called Clay. Let's bring him on. Hey, Clay.
Hey, Robert. How are we doing?
I'm all right, man. You know, I'm good.
All right.
That was a very nice piece of music. It got me into a nice space.
I'm glad it worked.
It's kind of like, okay, there is his calling card. There is his vibration. I'm picking up on his frequency. It gets me into your entrainment, and now here you are. I'm ready to talk with you.
It's not always my entrainment, man. I'm sometimes on that other boat, you know, where everything's going wrong, everything's hectic, and I've just seen so much of that. It's just, I have felt that it's kind of my duty to try to, you know, enlighten us as to that being in existence on the world, so you can hear it, the manic, the confusion, the angst, and all of that. But generally, I like to bring it down to a point where we can be okay with things, you know, because it's really important to be okay and not lose it. So I thought that was a good choice to start with today because, you know, of course, I'm going to be a little bit nervous to be out in front of, you know, all 11 or 13 of us. And, you know, it's just exciting to be here. And especially after some of the goof-ups, you know, I think it's just a failure of, on my part, to be able to follow orders or instructions. And, you know, of course, you had your car breakdown and stuff like that. But, you know, we're here now, and I'm very, very pleased to see a nice dozen of us here. And that's a lot more than is usually in attendance to anything I have to say. But,
hey, look.
Yeah.
There were only 12 people involved at the greatest event in history. So, you know, don't let numbers or lack thereof dissuade you.
Oh, I certainly don't. If I did, I would have stopped doing this a long, long time ago, you know. But I enjoy doing it, and I enjoy the effect that the music seems to have on the various individuals when they encounter it, and I enjoy doing it. I don't think I'm not sure what else I would do except go play with bugs and rocks, you know, or make some trouble out in the street somewhere, but. Now is not the time for that because I still have my mother to take care of, and until she's, you know, gone, I'm going to be a good boy. And I got my kids. So, yeah, being home and making music and hoping to do something that makes a difference. And I do like making videos, as you know.
Right.
The videos are quite fun, you know, that takes you away from what we're getting in regards to the general mainstream, whether... You know, I mean, there's just so much stuff out there, and not all of it is very good for you, and most of it is a waste of time. And I won't say my stuff isn't about killing time somehow, because, you know, I mean, in terms of education or enlightenment, I don't know how much I'm actually providing, but there are glimpses of things, you know, whether it's wisdom or truth or just beauty or, you know, there's kind of a slightly fun, hedonistic aspect to what I'm doing because it really is about just, like, enjoyment and, you know, sights and sounds and funny pictures and juxtaposing weird things upon each other. And, you know, for 6 or 7 minutes, I try to take you away and hopefully you walk away not feeling like it was a complete waste of time. But part of my feeling is that that's what we're doing quite often on this planet is just trying to kill time in as pleasant a manner as possible. Unfortunately, a lot of that time is spent, you know, looking at Beyonce and the president pretending, you know, that they're the best that we can get out there.
Well, the president, he's the president, actually, right? I mean, that would be...
Exactly, and that somehow that's what we deserve. That's what we asked, and in this long journey through time and history that this is, you know, how far we've evolved at this point as a nation and as a human people. So, yeah, it's kind of discouraging, to say the least.
Well, creativity and imagination is the one thing that theoretically helps us stay in touch with our humanity as we grapple with more and more dehumanizing and desensitizing experiences in our lives. I mean, you know, it's like I was watching. Somebody sent me the video of the latest Beyonce track, and it was
yeah, I saw part of that. Yeah, it was quite incredible.
And I didn't have the volume up, and it was just like, what am I witnessing here?
Yeah.
You know, what is this? I mean, look, we can get in there. We can break it down. The dark horse, which represents another horse of the apocalypse, that's what she rides in on. I mean, there's all kinds of symbolism, right, that we want to drill down, take this thing apart and say, okay, this is where this is headed. But at the same time, it's also like, if you just step back and say, you know, what the hell is this? I mean, why are we actually watching this? This is completely and utterly insane. On some level, it's utterly insane, especially when you have the volume down, because then you see it from a whole different perspective, and it's mind-boggling. Let's talk about your music for a second. How long did it take you to put together this assemblage of tracks?
Well, you know, some of the tracks go way back, you know, just well over a decade. And I'll goof with something because I'll get really excited and I'll spend, you know, part of a day or a whole day just like going, wow, what is possible with that? I never knew I could sound like that. So you just do that and you get into this space. It really is kind of like, you know, music can be very much like a drug. It's very much a mind-altering thing. These sounds, I mean, sound waves just have an effect on the brain.
Yep.
And then they eventually, you know, will get to the soul and the heart matter of who you are. And when I did, like the opening song, when I first did that, I had done it with a bunch of different sounds, and I wrote that song for a girl who I was very crazy about, and it just felt so good. And at one point I wanted to revisit that song, but use, you know, more like pianos and synths that were a little bit more ethereal. And as I started to play with this thing, I realized that I was into something, you know, big in terms of who I was personally, because I was, you know, my roots are in punk rock and post-punk. I mean, I've been in numerous bands, and you know, you're surrounded by live drummers, bass, and guitars, and you have this, you know, beautiful cacophony of sounds and stuff. And yet there's a part of me, you know, I mean, we could look at my chart and try to explain what all that's about, but that I wanted to go somewhere else, and I was slowly going there. But with Star Trail, I felt like I'd finally arrived. And then I just keep tinkering with it. You know, you can only go there so much for a day, and I'm not one of these people who is like going, I'm going to do this song that's going to, like, just break me commercially. I mean, the very first song I ever wrote on piano when I was, I believe, 23, and I was a janitor, and I didn't know how to play, but I would start vacuuming these classrooms, and then I'd sit down. There were 4 pianos at the school, and I would start plunking on this thing and start writing music. I was writing about punk rock at that point, and I was featured in the art section of a Sunday San Diego Union article, and this kid comes up to me and says, "You're that kid. You're the guy that is in the Union." And he introduced himself, and we started playing. The very first song I ever wrote on piano with words, once we started a band, you know, it went on radio, and we were like, you know, creating near riots because the DJ wasn't supposed to be playing the music, but because we weren't on a big label or anything, and yet people were requesting that stuff. So, I mean, I've had my moments where, you know, I'm very much in the spotlight, and you can't get rid of people, you know, away from your house, always on the phone, just being at the center of attention and stuff. But at some point, you know, I mean, especially having kids, that made a huge difference. I had to really adapt to reality, which was, my responsibilities as a father. And, I still wanted to be creative, but at some point the whole band thing, and it took a long time because I started performing in 81 and I didn't stop till 95. But, in terms of back to your question, how long did it take to put this album together? It took a long time. And one of the reasons is because I'm so into just creativity and not like going, okay, this is a package, here's the bow, here's the ribbon, this is where you open it. And I would like you to hear this song first because I've got hundreds of things. So it is, like you said, in that sense, I am very elusive. In the other sense, I am completely out front and just daily creating or semi-daily creating. I do have to take time to get on a bicycle and breathe air and go on the garden and play with spiders and, make sure it doesn't turn into a jungle. And every once in a while people have work for me, which I like doing. But I really like making music, and I'm glad I didn't do it all my life professionally because I think what happens is you get pigeonholed. People have expectations. A lot of people consider me to be a sellout because I do really nice, pretty music at this point. And they want me to do all this political, angsty stuff, like get out there and riot right now, and all of that. And, when I was doing that, I saw a lot of people going, yeah, Clay, just go out there and do that. And then I turn around and find out that basically most people were just hiding.
Right.
They wanted you to be up front. They wanted you to go and lead the massacre. And I've seen massacres. I've seen them in Mexico. I've seen them here. We've had ambushes. We've, gotten into kidnappings and stupid stuff that, you attract a certain kind of attention. Now, people want to know about your pee-pee, Robert. It's just like, what's going on? I'm sure it's just like you're always going to attract that negative attention. So what I'm trying to do at this point, not so much as a response to that, but because I do feel like as we get older, you want to start to be able to suggest other ways of being. And as you know, I haven't changed my stance on anything really in terms of my politics or my outlook and or my being vocal. I just don't like mixing it in with my music. I think music is a very precious place, and I think it's a special place. And, in many ways it's a sacred place. And I don't want the words Obama or things like that to end up in my songs, or government and rise up, that's all good and fine. There's really a lot of great acts doing that. But, it's nice when I can take a friend and he's having a bad day and you can play something like Bedtime Story and all of a sudden you're like, dude, chill. And it's not a pretentious kind of like chill, it's not like, I don't want to get into all of that, but I do think my music rides a very fine line between certain types of transcendental music and just a very straightforward kind of numbskullish pop music. And it doesn't force you to think, but it allows you to. It doesn't say you have to do this or that. It just asks you, what are you feeling? This is what I'm feeling. Let's do this. I try not to cry in the music. There's bits of sadness, but I think there's incredible beauty, and I think quite often there's a lot of fun. And I think we forget to have fun sometimes. And,
I agree. So I've had some positive feedback. I mean, I've been playing your stuff now on the show for about 3 weeks leading up to this.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Well, sure, man. I mean, I like it. Somebody sent me an email and said, hey, where can I get this? I looked on YouTube, so I didn't know where to send them. I sent them to you. Maybe you got that email. So the question is now, where can people find your music?
Well, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and throw some links up in the chat room as soon as you and I are off. But right now what I've done is, and, because of all that 12th house stuff in my chart, I could have run away last second today, and I was being very encouraged, by one of your friends there that, I still had a chance, and, it was under consideration. But what I can do is just I'll go ahead and send those links up. And by the way, I've reduced the price of the Bringing album, at least for a few days, down to $4. I think it's like some really good songs, and I think basically any one of those songs over the span of a lifetime is worth $4 individually.
So okay. So people can buy the record. Where can they buy it?
Well, what it is, it's only in virtual form right now. I prefer. Somebody told me they prefer hard copy CDs.
Okay. Where can they buy the download?
Yeah, the download you can get at bandcamp.com. What I can do is, like I said, as soon as I'm off here, I will go ahead and send up a link. Just look up Man Called Clay at bandcamp.com. That's the entire album. And you can actually stream entire songs and not just get 20 seconds of snippet, which is what most commercial enterprises do, including Depeche Mode or even these millionaire groups that could actually afford to let you hear an entire song. They only want you to hear 20 seconds because, they don't really, that's really putting your stuff on the table. And, quite often it's not, this stuff doesn't hold up after 4.5, 5 minutes.
Clay, I have a question for you.
Okay.
How come your music isn't on iTunes or Amazon or more ubiquitous sort of distribution platform?
Because I wanted to kind of feel out what was possible. For one, I don't like iTunes. I've only bought one song there. I'm not a big Steve Jobs fan. I'm a complete Apple. I will drive no other computer. They make the best computers. I don't like what they've done to the world of the business world, and in terms of creating these crazes regarding devices. And, when you hear about kids in China or Taiwan, an 11-year-old kid removing his kidney so he can have an iPad, we're just at a point where I think computers are important. I don't know what I'd do without mine at this point. But I'm not into iTunes. I will undoubtedly be on iTunes at some point once I realize. See, the whole Bringing album, I've even changed a mix this morning because I asked you not to play the one song. I wasn't really that crazy about the mix. Last minute, I'm remixing it, I'm re-uploading it, and you have a different form. So once I'm on iTunes, I don't think I can do that. Plus, it somehow, I feel like I become complicit into a system which, we used to cry about record labels screwing the artist. Well, iTunes is to the record labels what the record labels used to be to the artists. Plus, they ripped off my favorite group when I was a kid, which was the Beatles. They lied, and when Steve Jobs said, I will not go into the record industry, later on in a European court, he said, well, at that point, a record was a round piece of plastic with a hole in it. Mm-hmm. Well, that's crap, because a recording was any kind of documentation of that music that you could play back and hear, whether it was on tape originally. That's still a recording.
Okay,
and,
let's take iTunes out of the mix. What about Amazon? Could you be on Amazon? You can get downloads on Amazon.
Oh, no, I love Amazon. I'm not going to say they're perfect. Nobody's perfect. There are no perfect venues. I'm not perfect, and so I should quit pretending. But yeah, I'm just very slow.
Yeah.
I've been doing this since 1980 and causing people to get really upset and really excited. And I've seen that. And there's a part of me once I go more public. I am very reclusive. It's not that I couldn't go out and meet with all of you right now. It's just that I've had so much opportunity to get to know people and know what those one-on-one exchanges, whether it's, with the New Age retreat and 100 of us running around, or whether we're, at a discussion about this or that. I've been in a lot of situations. I like creating, and I like the sanctity of my kind of isolation. I have come from a very small family, Right now, I've been in charge with, the caretaking of my mother, even though she doesn't see it that way. She thinks, she's falling down on the ground saying, I don't need you. And this is daily. But, I like having that space where I can go and work on today's track and get tired of it and just keep doing stuff. But you know what, Robert? I know what you're digging at, and you're right. And there's a part of me, I have all that 12th house stuff, and I have a lot of Sagittarius. And you know where it all stands. Sagittarius starts at degree 1. I mean, I am so ready to move on to the next project. It's like,
it seems to me, this is my observation of you, and this is not a dig. This is not in any way denigrating you. But my observation of you is that you're somebody who has his foot, his pedal to the metal. That you're accelerating full throttle, and you've got your foot on the brake at the same time. And that's that could very well be the case. And it's like I could be in the back seat and this other guy's in the front seat driving, and I mean I should be telling him, hey, let's slow down here, let's register this work, and then we can move on. But I'm like you said, there's this guy, he's got his pedal to the metal, and he's most interested in seeing what is possible today. And that is a really weird thing, I mean, it's like, and I can go back and go, God, Robert, you don't understand how many times I will open up a file and go, I did that? Oh, wow. Yeah, no, I do kind of understand that, actually.
And it ends up being so good. I am like going, how do you do that? And walk away and not, just like be on fire to share that with the world. Yeah. And I looked at my chart. I try to figure out what I'm doing. I'm 56 years old at this point, and I'm like a boy who just takes this sandbox of soldiers that he worked so hard yesterday, and just eliminate them and start a new battle and see what's possible and do all of that. The nice thing now, though, is I've watched music evolve in terms of the electronic end of it. I mean, coming from a point where, the first synthesizers were just getting out into the market, and you couldn't afford them. You were buying like $50 used Casios, electric pianos with a broken key, and driving them through a guitar pedal. But at this point, I can create stuff, wipe out my sandbox, open up a file, and there's my sandbox perfectly. Every grain of sand, every person, and I can just keep going forward. So, that's a good thing, because it allows me to constantly forge ahead with new stuff and get all of that nutty, need to just constantly create something new. And then it allows me to backtrack and, hopefully at some point really get, and I tell my collaborators this, no matter what happens, you walk in here with your guitar, you hear something, you respond, you play something. I'm still the caretaker of the music, because the music I am doing, and we can get into delusions and, accusations of megalomania or whatever.
Yeah, that'd be a whole other show. I hate to say this to you as you're about to bare your soul, but I'm going to have to say goodbye soon, Clay.
No, that's fine, and I think that was a real good call, and, I'm all about the timing, so. All right. And I'm very excited to hear what your next guest has to say.
I think you will be. Yep.
I got very emotional about that Dig movie. I got very emotional about that, and I was very agitated. And incredible.
Hold on now.
Incredible document. Here's
a question for you. Did you see a little of yourself in Anton?
Well, I kind of like the Dandy Warhols.
Right.
And I kind of liked them a lot more after that movie. I always thought they were a little bit in this cubicle, and a little bit safe and sweet. And you know, I mean, he's gorgeous. You're going to play off that gorgeous rock star pop sweet guy. I mean, he's cute and he acts like a gentleman. You know, the guys in Brian Jonestown Massacre, I mean, it's the complete opposite end of the spectrum. I mean, there's nothing I like about that band. How she stayed with that project is, you know, I mean, I guess I just have to, you know, really commend her on her commitment.
You relate to Courtney more than you relate to Anton, then.
Yeah, you know, I mean, we're all different. I see me in all of those guys. I mean, I'm not going to say that there's not parts where I'm such a flaming little egotist that I'm an idiot at some point. I mean, I've caught myself there plenty of times.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think the difference was that I was always doing something really special musically. We can get into a whole argument as to what Brian Jonestown Massacre was doing and what made them special, but I was never in agreement. I think, you know, they had their encyclopedias out. They knew what had come before, and they knew what might register with a certain you know, group of individuals.
I'm not
sure
it was
far.
We'll ask Ondi when she comes on the show. We'll ask her about that.
Yeah, I'd be very excited.
Well, listen, thanks for finally making this happen. I think
thank you.
I think we've averted World War III by you coming on the show now. Finally, that's what it's about.
Well, good. You know, anything I can do in that direction.
I think you've taken action through some form of inaction. So congratulations on Bringing, which you can find at Bandcamp. Go to Bandcamp and plunk down $4 and support this fellow so he can go out and buy a new piece of equipment or something like that, right?
Maybe burn some actual plastic copies of it. You know, I've been very slow on that just to see, you know, to what extent I can move the virtual copies. But anyways, that's it. I'll keep everybody posted. I'll throw some links up, and I appreciate yours and everybody else's time.
All right, keep your foot off the brakes, Clay. Let it rip.
Thank you, Robert. Have a good day.
See you later. That is Man Called Clay. His new record, Bringing, is out on for virtual consumption at bandcamp.com. You can go there, and for a very, very small amount, $4, you can have hours worth of enjoyment. Support your local and independent artists. All right. There's a 773 number. I'm wondering if this is Ondi. If not, I'm hoping she calls in here in the next few minutes. Let's just check in. Here we go. Hello? Hello? The blankness of space. The void of silence. It is there. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play another piece of Clay's music. And when I come back, hopefully director Ondi Timoner will be with us to discuss her 2 landmark films and also a total disruption. So let me play the track I really like. It's called Umek, and this is from Bringing by Man Called Clay. And hopefully in hour number 2 here, we'll have Ondi with us. Here's Man Called Clay and Umek. That was Umek by Man Called Clay, my first guest in today's show. And my second guest is waiting in the wings. She is, well, maverick filmmaker, probably an overused term, but she is a force of nature, and she has endurance to boot. She created two of the, I wouldn't call them long-form documentaries, although they do have some gravitas in terms of time, some chronos associated with them when watching them. But it's about her relationship with her subject matter, which is utterly fascinating. Spending large amounts of her life with the people that she has filmed and documented, and then turning those films into things that we can all experience. Of course, I'm referring to Ondi Timoner, whose latest project, A Total Disruption, is something that is just as visionary and unique as she is. So let's find out more about that and her right now. Hello, Ondi.
Hello. Hi, Robert. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. How's the weather in Tejas?
It's beautiful. You know, we've got clear blue skies, and it's about 70 degrees. And tomorrow it'll probably be about 45 degrees and sleeting. The weather here is really schizo as far as I can tell. But right now, couldn't ask for a better day.
All right, I'm about to refresh my Kickstarter screen because I just received an email that we received a $10,000 pledge. So
really,
we're filming. We have 149 backers and $12,150 towards our $96,000 goal, and now we're refreshing.
Okay, so you're capturing your Kickstarter experience via film.
We have 152 backers and $22,278 as of refreshing the screen, Robert.
That's amazing. And what's your goal?
$96,000 and 31 days to go. We're on our third. This is our fourth day. We're just 3 days in now.
My show is incredibly good juju, Ondi, so I expect you to be probably double that number by the end of the weekend.
I feel it. I can feel it. Well, just meeting you at South by Southwest, I knew. I mean, you emanate a certain karmic glow, so I couldn't resist your show. But I mean, we can talk about what this is that I'm trying to accomplish, or whatever you want. I'm all yours.
Well, let's do this. I do want to talk about that. I think a lot of people are coming in some ways cold around you, and they don't know who you are, what you've done. So I kind of want to set the stage and give them some idea as to, you know, where you've come from, and the two films, these two really, you know, incredible films that you've worked on, and then we'll bust out A Total Disruption, your Kickstarter thing, and I think it'll all fit together. How's that sound?
Yeah, I think it makes sense because one of my films that you referred to, We Live in Public, was sort of laid the groundwork. It's sort of the flip side of A Total Disruption. And so without We Live in Public, there would be no Total Disruption.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Because it's a dark cautionary tale about what happens when the internet comes along and broadband comes along, and we can trade our privacy and eventually perhaps our freedom for the recognition we so dearly crave. And that was Josh Harris's vision, who was an internet pioneer and visionary in the 90s. He created Pseudo Networks, which was the first internet television network, way before there was broadband. So, you know, the image on the screen was the size of a postage stamp. And people really couldn't watch it. But he managed to get $42 million of investment, and then, you know, in retrospect, looking back, says it was an art project. But he was basically really ahead of his time and perhaps irresponsible with VC funds, but went ahead and took his own personal money and created a bunker in Manhattan at the turn of the millennium to show everybody and to demonstrate how willing people will be to give everything up, to have their lives matter, and to be in front of the camera. So he rigged 6 floors with 110 surveillance cameras and offered everything for free, room and board, but your image, that we own, was what he said. And people would fill out 500 deeply personal questions and fingerprints and put on uniforms and, you know, and check in and live in public, basically. And this went on for nearly 30 days till it was busted by the SWAT team and FEMA as a millennial cult. And I entered the picture when he called me on the phone and said, "Are you Ondi Timoner?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Are you interested in documenting cultural history?" And I said, "Well, always, but what do you have in mind?" And this was in the spring of 1999. And I said, "Well," he said, "it's the turn of the millennium. It's going to be man versus machine, and the next millennium is going to be something really incredible, and somebody's got to mark this moment in time, so I'm going to give 25 artists unlimited budgets to picture the future. And, if you want to come and document it, I'll give you whatever you need to make it happen." So that's how that all started. And it became a 10-year project that went to Sundance in 2009 and was sort of, I thought, it was really important because it was like the harbinger of things to come, right as Facebook was really, really taking off and Grandma was getting on Facebook,
Yeah.
just to make people more conscious about putting their images out there and what they're doing and what it means to let go of privacy, or what it means to possibly let that really powerful, really compelling phone in your pocket get in the way of, your intimate relationship, or the face that's sitting, the real physical face sitting across the dinner table from you, that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally. Absolutely. It makes sense. I was at Pseudo in 1998. Jackie brought me there. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, we hung out there, and I think DJ Dara was there that night, and it was a very cool environment, and there was a lot happening in New York at that time, especially as related to film and the internet and this really interesting convergence, because I was friends with Iara Lee right around then, and she'd just done Synthetic Pleasures and was doing her next film about electronic music. And she took a really interesting route as a filmmaker. She actually moved away from film and got involved in protest. And she was on board one of those ships going from Turkey to Israel that got raided about a year ago. So it's fascinating how people can get involved in these projects and immerse themselves in the media and then walk away from it. What's Josh Harris doing these days?
I don't actually have a minute-by-minute update on him, and he does move around. The last I heard, he was in Vegas, and kind of, he's a big gambler, So I think I think he's pretty good at counting cards, also. So I think he was doing some of that. I know he's trying to finish a film that he shot, a project he shot that is touched upon in We Live in Public. You may recall, after the bunker was busted, he went off on a fishing trip, and he filmed it actually, and he wants to finish the film. It's called Tuna Heaven. And then he came back, and then he rigged his own loft with those 32 motion-controlled surveillance cameras and 66 microphones, and announced that now that broadband was here, we would, he and his girlfriend would live in public and show us all how wonderful life in public is. And it started out as a giddy experiment and turned into, a mental breakdown for him, where he really needed to retreat from the world and became an apple farmer, as you know.
Right.
So I was really blessed to be able to tell this story. I feel I really loved it so much, and it was really tough along the way. There were some real hiccups, but I love being able to share this with people because it is such an incredible story, because it's a double cautionary tale. On the one hand, he's cautioning us at the beginning of the film. He says the lions and tigers were kings of the jungle, then they ended up in cages.
Right.
I believe we're on the same track, and then at the same time, so that's the cautionary tale he's cautioning us with, and then at the same time, he's actually he is a walking cautionary tale himself, because he was raised on the television and on Gilligan's Island, and he was he says fed electronic calories for most of his life, and so his very idea of family, his very idea of life is really episodic, and people are sort of just pawns to him in many ways, and yet there's a beautiful side to Josh. It's just that there's something that's disconnected there, and I felt like it was also important for parents to see the film to say, okay, no matter how much your child loves that iPad, make sure that child goes outside and plays, and even if they resist, they ultimately, like 5 minutes into my son, for example, loves Minecraft, but if I can get him on the bike, he'll be like, no, let's do it later, because the electronics are so compelling, right? But if I can get him on that bike and get him rolling down the street, he's laughing and smiling in just a few minutes, We have to keep making that happen for them.
It's funny. We exchanged the fact that we both have 8-year-old boys.
Yeah, well, yours is 8, mine is...
Yeah.
But basically the same. Yeah, it's pretty awesome, huh?
Well, and my kid's into Minecraft too. And yesterday, he was anxiously awaiting the new Minecraft update. Here he is. He's 9 years old. I can't wait for the new Minecraft update. He was telling me everything that was going to be available to him with this new update. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's scary, but also awesome. I mean, because here's the thing: a total disruption is really the flip side of that. It's really all about the expansive and incredible opportunity we all have right now, with more power in our pockets than we had on all the world's computers 5 years ago. We now can leverage our ideas into reality. Your son can create something that's absolutely groundbreaking, and he doesn't need $1 million or $2 million or $3 million to do that. He can actually go and do that. And that, I think, is an opportunity that I just can't resist. I mean, I think all my career, the most gratifying and driving impulse to do the work that I do, which is by far, if you make documentaries, it is not easy. It's actually, I've been involved in some scripted projects recently. I really think it's much more difficult, and it's signing on for a lot of. You need a lot of tenacity. So my hat's off to all of my fellow documentarians out there. But the reason I'm driven to do it since the get-go is to inspire people to do what they love, is to inspire people to live their lives to the fullest. And I've been so gratified, with my movie Dig, so many people have come back even to work with me and said, I picked up a camera because of you. I saw that movie and I felt like I could do it. I made it, it's so DIY in its style that it made people feel like they could do it too, and they can, It made people start bands or just inspired them, right? And that's been my driving inspiration. So here I am in a moment in history that I feel so blessed to be alive for, where there really is a revolution going on. It's happening on all these small screens. It's happening on a very personal level, and it's happening on a very global level. And that opportunity is being driven and created by invisible superheroes, in my opinion, the rock stars of today, these entrepreneurs and innovators who are disrupting everything that we've known before. So, we went and we got our food in a certain way. Well, that's different now. We booked a hotel in a certain way. Well, now we have the option to rent from each other. Right. We used to take a cab, but now we can take Uber or Lyft. It's every way that we operated. If you were in Pakistan, you certainly couldn't take a chemistry class with a guy in England that's being taught by someone in Silicon Valley. Right. But that's happening on Khan Academy and in Udacity and all of these. Everything is accessible thanks to the mighty internet, and we are connecting directly through time and space in real time. And it's too big to conceive of as, I'm going to just capture all of this, but I'm doing my damnedest to do exactly that. I'm doing my damnedest to put, to really shine a light and point my lens at the people that are driving this revolution and at the impact that it can have as we move forward, so that other people will jump in and that entrepreneurs who are doing it now will learn from each other via the filmmaking that I'm doing. Mm-hmm. So instead of waiting 10 years to release We Live in Public, which is what I did with We Live in Public, I'm sort of releasing these profiles as I go towards making, my next film. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
Okay. I'm so just, I've realized, because we have 7 original series on our portal on totaldisruption.com, and I was actually at Elon Musk's house last night. You know who he is, right? Tesla and all that. I was there for a digital VIP party where the Producers Guild was throwing a party about celebrating, advancements in digital. So it was a perfect sort of melange for me to be a part of. And I was talking to Jason Calacanis, who actually is in We Live in Public quite a bit. And he was saying, your problem, Ondi, is that it's too complicated. You, in your mind, can see the difference between all of these 7 original series, but most people just see it as a series, and most people see you as a filmmaker, and they just want to know, okay, she's making a film, let me back that. But for me, it's a little bit more, I can follow my own train of thought, so that's why I keep saying to you, is this clear? Because I wonder when he said that to me, I thought, well, I wonder if I'm overcomplicating things. But A Total Disruption is divided into these various series based upon what the subject matter. So like Startup Life is cutting-edge startups that are scrapping it, right? They're making it happen. They've just raised $400,000, but they're sleeping on the floor because they don't have the time to go to Target and get a new air mattress because they're so busy fielding calls and improving the technology and trying to make it happen, whatever that is, right? That's Startup Life. The Wizard series is all about, the Reid Hoffmans, the Kevin Syströms, the Tony Hsiehs. We're filming Jack Dorsey on May 8th for that series. He founded Twitter and Square. That's the people who started something small that became extremely, massively impactful. Right. And then there's Future is Now, which is technological advancements in education and health and the environment, like the Slingshot, which is a water purifying system that doesn't require electricity, which is revolutionizing and saving thousands of lives as we speak, because Dean Kamen, who invented it, convinced Coca-Cola to distribute it, in Kenya. And it has the power to save the world, really. Most people die from waterborne illnesses. So it's that kind of thing. It's 3D printing of prosthetic limbs. It's technology applied to really improving our lives or saving our lives. And then there's, several other series. There's the Pivot, which is when you have a company and you realize, or you have a project and you realize, it's not working. Some part of it needs to change, and we need to iterate, and we need to move quickly. And so that's the Pivot. And it's people like Ben Rattray, who founded change.org, one of my favorite websites, talking about his realization, which is actually a fascinating one, but I am going on and on. So you tell me if you want me to talk about these.
Okay, so there are a couple things I wanted to ask you about, because as you're talking, I'm thinking, I'd like to hear about this, I'd like to hear about this. But to be clear, and to give you some validation, I could easily see this as 7 different series, because the subject matter is segmented. And you could have one person talking about the startup experience, and it has nothing to do with saving lives with a very simple yet sophisticated water filter in Kenya. So I get you on that. I totally get it.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that.
I wanted to ask you about, because you were there, you were in the bunker, so you're filming this whole experience as a documentarian, but you're also part of the experience. What was that like for you?
I didn't like it in the bunker. I think I would never have been there had I not been filming it. On the one hand, I felt, it was this exciting thing of everybody kind of almost like a hippie love moment, but it had this cyber sort of neo-fascistic edge to it. There was a firing range. I'd say the gun range was probably my least favorite and part of it. But I also felt like it was sort of fabricated a little bit, like everybody came in there and suddenly they were going to be forming this instant community. And so in that regard, I don't think it pictured, it's kind of like taking friending on Facebook and making it absolutely real. Like, somebody who you've never heard of makes a friend request and you say, sure, but if they're sleeping next to you, that's what that bunker was. Does that make sense?
And there's
like this instant add water friendship thing that just kind of spiraled out of control and didn't work. It did not work. And then there was this interrogation aspect where we'd be pulled in and interrogated, and really you can see in the film that they have a guy who did a lot of the training of CIA agents, actually advised the interrogator, who's actually a photographer named Ashkan Sahihi. He's actually a very good photographer in New York, and this was his experiment. This was his installation. But he actually did these really intensive, really sort of, I want to say hateful, but I like Ashkan personally, but, you know, I felt very protective of the people that were in there. One woman had come close to committing suicide and was forced in the interrogation to relive that experience. And you see a little bit of her crying and with her eyes closed in the film.
Yeah.
So there was just a little bit of like pushing people to the very, very edge that I felt like could get really dangerous really fast, and I'm glad nobody died, frankly.
Well, I mean, there was a mix, a surreal mix that was going on, and part of that cocktail was the gun range. So you have these guns with live bullets, and you have people put under this artificial and synthetic duress with all the alcohol or all the cigarettes and who knows what else was there. I mean, it was really a perfect storm for something really, tragic to happen, and obviously it didn't. And what I wanted to ask you about your experience there was it kind of a motivating factor for you to really take control of the media in some ways and to say, hey, look, we can use this in a way that is positive. We can use these tools. This is actually a really cautionary tale. I got to get on it. I've got some responsibility around it, and this is what I want my contribution to be.
Are you talking about back then or now?
Now.
Well, now, I mean, see, what's funny is I'm not Josh Harris, right? And he really had a very dark vision of all of this.
Right.
I feel like some incredible and beautiful and totally, look at Egypt, Look at the disruption that's happened as a result of us coming together on these platforms, as a result of Facebook and Twitter. And so, I'm urging everyone to kind of jump in. Not in a willy-nilly sort of way, but really to think about if you make pumpkin pies. I don't know why I always use this example, but if you make pumpkin pies, and that's because I guess it's just like the least technological thing you could be doing, right? You're making a pumpkin pie, but that's what you do. You make pies. You make really good pies. You have an opportunity to do that, to really make the best pies of your entire life and make a business doing it now. And you don't even have to leave your house. You can go on Zarly, Zaarly, and you can sell those pies. And you can find loyal customers that live down the street, and they can find you. Mm-hmm. And there's these marketplaces that are springing up. So as 40% of us are going to be out of a job because of the internet and as of being, replaced by computers, there's actually ways that we can use those very platforms to change what we're doing and do what we love. Does that make sense? I don't know if I answered your question.
Well, you did in a roundabout way, and I think it's really I think the answer to my question is that it's coming from you, and it's just something that you have as a pulse and want to expand that pulse. So yeah, you did answer the question, and I agree with you. Let's talk more about Kickstarter and what that is for you, how people can participate with that, and I understand that one of the big things with Kickstarter, like when I met you, you were raving about Amanda Palmer and how she was able to just bring 1,000 people to her concert and all the money she raised on Kickstarter. And one of the things she did was to be able to give back to the people that were participating and helping her crowdfund her projects. So I want to ask you about Kickstarter, and I want to ask you about the giving back process. How important is that, and how does that play into your Kickstarter offer?
So I was really blown away by Amanda. I left South by Southwest on a real kick with her, and actually, as we speak, we're going to be posting an update, which gives a little bit of a preview as to why I want her to be. I'm going to create the first series of first season of a new series called Chief Executive Artist, CEA, instead of CEO. She's going to be the star of that series for the first season. And the reason why is because she really does personify the use of technology to redefine the rules of engagement. She is taking the middleman out of the proposition by directly connecting with her fans, and her fans adore her, and they listen to her, and they are inspired by her, just as I was when I saw you that night. I just finished filming her, and I couldn't believe it, because what was going to be an hour-long interview turned into an afternoon, watching her work the social media channels to secure various instruments for what she calls a ninja gig that she was having that night. I mean, she announced this several hours beforehand and packed this Masonic temple, which she didn't even have a Scottish Rite Hall in Austin. I'm sure you know it. She didn't even have that hall, in the morning. But in the morning, she woke up and really wanted to play this gig, and decided that she wanted to play that day, and so she put it out there. Hey, I want to have a concert. She's not charging admission or anything like that. She loves to do what she does, and she does it for the sake of doing it. She put it out there. One of her fans jumped to it. Hey, how about this place? I've got access to it. Okay, great. Now she's got a venue. So then she goes out about her day, and she runs into 4 different bands, and she just invites them to come to play her gig. That's how it worked. I mean, she, in fact, was going on Twitter to find out she liked them all personally, but she didn't really know what they did or really what they stood for. She just kind of went through the day and took all that chaos and scooped it up and put it into a gig. And she was on Twitter to find out who the people were who she was going to have as guest performers at her gig. And she gave one band an opportunity to play, I think through her husband, Neil Gaiman. They were friends with him or something, or they knew him somehow, or they were on his blog. And they had been scammed. They had come to South by Southwest. Somebody had actually sold them on the fact that they were paying to play 3 showcases. And they drove down, like 6 guys in a van, and all they had the money for was to get down there and get back. They were going to sleep in their van.
Right.
And play these. When they get down to Texas, they are told that there was no gig. And this guy had just scammed their $1,000 or whatever they paid. And so they played that night at that ninja gig, and they played South by Southwest thanks to Amanda Palmer and Neil Gaiman. And I just felt a revolution in that room, and she was really getting into being a talk show kind of personality, talking to people. She just really likes connecting with people. That is driving her right now. And I think that we artists all need to learn from her. We all need to understand, and that's part of why this Kickstarter, it's not like I met Amanda and decided to do a Kickstarter. I was already going to do it. In fact, I was going to launch it the day that South by Southwest started, and thank God I didn't, because that would have been crazy, because now I understand what launching a Kickstarter means. It's pretty crazy, actually. So I can't imagine doing all the filming. I was doing so much filming at South by and doing this Kickstarter. But, the reason I'm doing the Kickstarter is to make my community a community, and to come together with my fans and to make new fans and friends and supporters of this. I want us all to get smarter together. I want us to unite around this content. I want everyone to contribute to this content. I want people to tell me what they want to see. I want them to go and follow their dreams as a result of the work that I'm doing. And so this Kickstarter is actually more than raising the $96,000, which we desperately need to be able to keep going. It's actually finding out whether people want me to do this, and then finding out who those people are that want me to do this, and making lifelong relationships with those people. Because that is how artists are going to be distributing their work from now on. And goodbye Ticketmaster if this continues,
Right.
And the middleman is more, as Amanda puts it, in the service industry because she has a computer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I guess how I'm seeing this for you is you're starting with this platform and these channels, and as a way to share cutting-edge information with people that are changing our lives, but also at the same time, you may not necessarily know where this is ultimately headed, or maybe you do, but it also feels to me like there's a lot of things that can come out of this. There could be more channels. There could be ways in which people can distribute music or media. I mean, it feels to me like this is a living organism in some ways that you're kind of bringing into the world. Am I getting closer to that?
Absolutely. I feel like the whole reason why we kind of didn't, the whole reason why regimes that are corrupt and horrible and abusive and violent are allowed to continue is because the people in those countries can't connect with the outside world, right? The whole reason why artists get screwed or can't get their work out there, or, a beautiful, brilliant band, and I've seen it happen again and again and again, come out with this unbelievable record and then nobody ever hears it because the record company does this or that. Like, the whole reason that was allowed to happen was because we could not connect directly through time and space. And so I feel like what I want to do is help us all mobilize towards being really conscious of this opportunity and how to work it together, And I think we can do that. I think it's not that I'm creating this opportunity. It exists. I'm just shining a light on it and hoping that we will, by sharing this film as I go, and by sharing these stories, that I'm going to help other people succeed. And I think the world's going to be a better place for it, And it's really exciting to me. I mean, I just feel really like the greatest invention, perhaps, and the greatest tectonic shift, perhaps, in human history. We're in the middle of it, And I felt like somebody needed to document it. And I felt suddenly, I guess, just like Josh Harris said when he said, somebody's got to document, somebody's got to mark this moment of change in the millennium. I felt like somebody's got to capture this revolution and drive it and help to drive it and help to move it forward in thoughtful ways. And I felt like, well, I guess I've got it. Since I thought of that, I guess I got to do it. So here I am doing it.
There you are.
And now I want, here we are. We have 104 backers as of this phone call. We have been live for 3 days and 3 hours.
Right.
We launched 3 days and 3 hours ago. We launched on Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. your time.
Right.
Or 10:30 a.m. And now we're at 154 backers. And, right as I was getting on the phone, we got a $10,000 pledge, which means that I am going to make a film for that person. That's one of the rewards. We have rewards like Shepard Fairey, the incredible, American gem himself, one of the greatest graphic artists in history, is creating our poster and our logo. Right. And he is going to unveil that at some point during this campaign. But right now you can get in with a reward where you get you're like the first ones to get that digital print, and then we're going to be coming out with a reward print probably next week as well. And then we are going to get on the road with Amanda Palmer if we succeed. She's going to go and do these house parties. When she did her Kickstarter and she made nearly $1.2 million, she was basically getting there to a large degree with these house parties, which are $5,000 reward pledges, which people came together in this sort of new trust economy and put their money together to say, hey, we can make our world a little bit more like we want it to be, right? If we can put our money together, $200 at a time or something, we can get Amanda Palmer to Israel or South Africa or wherever. So my hope is that we succeed with this campaign and I'm able to document her actually going and meeting all of those people that made this happen and find out sort of what they think, what their mentality is, and witness this. So there is a reward on a Total Disruption to come and join me and Amanda on the road. And there's also a reward of joining me on the road in Silicon Valley or Silicon Alley in New York or San Francisco or in L.A., where there's an incredible hotbed of tech innovation right now, and to come spend the day with me as I interview these wizards and learn some filmmaking along the way. And then, there's critiques of films. There's my films are available there. So there's a lot of in and of itself, crowdfunding is a phenomenon. It's an incredible way to get the message out there. At the same time, build a community, and at the same time, for some people, it's like a marketplace. It's an opportunity to get me to make a film about you for $10,000. That's a pretty good deal. I'll run and go anywhere in the world and do that. Or I'll come speak. So what we do as artists is we figure out what can we trade for you supporting our project, and that's
right.
what I'm
Yeah. In a lot of ways, it's getting closer to almost a resource-based economy in some ways, because then the person becomes their own most trusted resource, and then people invest in that, and that's actually quite encouraging as a model that's emerging.
Yeah, we're back to barter economy, and also people want, maybe people just want. Well, you know what? You got to watch the Amanda Palmer clip that we're just putting out. I mean, basically she says maybe that, because Veronica Mars, when they went to the 2 million overnight or whatever on Kickstarter, they got a lot of slack, and she got a backlash also from the press. Why should an artist be allowed to raise that kind of money? Well, maybe people want to see her do what she does. Maybe that's okay. Why is that not okay? Why are artists supposed to be starving and struggling to make what ultimately is something that we hope will contribute and make your life better? Should we be just in the shackles of poverty, or maybe our fan bases, maybe they don't want to see us like that. Maybe they actually want to pay it forward and see us do what we do and see us thrive, and so then they can be inspired to do what they do.
Right.
What's wrong with that?
Nothing in my world, nothing in my universe. That lines up, perfectly. I wanted to ask you, we only have a few minutes left, but I wanted to ask you, a lot of people have ideas. Not everybody moves on their ideas. You seem to have an abundance of ideas, and yet you seem to be able to move on them too. Where did you get that? How did you hone yourself to be able to experience a vision or something, and then begin to make it happen?
Well, I think I was born with a certain dose of tenacity, and my father's an entrepreneur. He founded an airline, and he actually innovated sort of the model along with Southwest that you see out there. His company was called Air Florida. I'm actually writing a screenplay about him and my mother, and he is an incredible man. He's 84 now, and I grew up watching him make it happen no matter what. And then when I was 9, his neck was actually cracked in a massage, it was supposed to be a relaxing maneuver, and it released cartilage to block the blood to his brain. He had a massive stroke. And I watched I saw that security is an illusion as they lost their money, and I saw people sort of turn their backs, and it was just incredible. But I saw him continue to do every single thing that he possibly could do, try to get up and start another airline that ultimately failed, try to, to this day, so difficult for him to stand up on his own. But he does it because he has to, and I think that spirit is inside me. But the other thing that I think is something that isn't just unique to my story is that when you actually do something and you make something happen, you really do realize that cliche that it's not about, it's the journey, not the destination. There is so much that is gratifying about coming together with a small team and making something happen. I realized when I was 19 and I picked up a camera for the first time, and I went across the country I was at Yale University at the time, and me and my brother were there together, and my roommate, we drove across the country over spring break and back. And I just brought the camera along, and I went into toll booths and convenience stores, and I asked people if they were happy or what they feared the most or what they thought of gays in the military, because that was kind of a big deal in 1992. And I saw that buying a bag of chips and a soda was actually infinitely more interesting with a camera in my hand, because it was into worlds I could never otherwise enter. It was a way I could talk to people and find out what they were thinking. And I got to tell you, I cannot. It was the greatest thing that happened. I mean, I was going to be a musician. I was going to be the first woman president at a certain point when I was growing up. I was going to be a novelist. And picking up that camera when I was 19, it altered the course of my life forever, and in such a beautiful and blessed way. You know, I'm infinitely grateful to the God smiling upon me at that moment. So I think that's why I do all of this, is just because I love what I do, and I'm really blessed to have that opportunity to shine a light on those around me and keep the cycle going. I have a talk show, called BYOD, Bring Your Own Doc, and every episode is about a different doc filmmaker and their work. It's on the lip.tv, and I host the show and I produce the show. And I love doing that, even though it adds another layer of massive complication in my life, because I have to watch a lot of movies every week. It actually has got me watching my colleagues' work and talking to them about what moves them and why they do it. And I got to tell you, the adventures that we documentary filmmakers have, the amount of arrested, all my friends have been arrested, with cameras in their hands. So we're really on the front lines and telling the stories that you may not hear in the media. And I'm just really honored and privileged to be part of that group,
I'm a big doc fan. I love documentaries. It's one of my favorite forms of cinema. What are some of your favorite documentaries?
Well, I'm super, super duper excited because I'm the keynote at Hot Docs this year in Toronto, which is probably the biggest doc conference in the world, along with, I think it's probably the biggest doc conference in the world, but certainly in North America. And because I'm going to be there when they're celebrating D.A. Pennebaker's 20th anniversary of the War Room, I'm lucky enough to be able to have D.A. Pennebaker on my show with his incredibly talented wife, Chris Hedges, and they're a filmmaking team, and he made Don't Look Back, which I'm sure you've seen.
Yeah.
And I really feel like, that was a beautiful film and an incredible moment in Bob Dylan's career. And I loved it. People ask me, like, what did you watch when you were making Dig? What was Dig? What was the inspiration? And with all my films, I don't watch other films to get ideas or inspiration. I actually derive it from the subject matter itself. So it wasn't like I saw it in that regard, but I really did. I do love that film. Other great documentaries, another music film that's incredible this year was Searching for Sugar Man. An incredible story, and Malik is a friend of mine at this point, thanks to my talk show BYOD, and I filmed him at first at Sundance when he first was premiering it, and saw him around the world after that, and it was a meteoric rise. I recommend that to everybody because it really is great. And then The Invisible War is amazing. My friend Kirby Dick made that film. That's an amazing film. Lucy Walker, who is a wonderful filmmaker, she made a film early on that blew my mind called The Devil's Playground. That's awesome. And then, of course, Steve James is a rockin' filmmaker, and he made the film Interrupters, which is amazing. And then Frida Lee Mock made a film called G-Dog about a guy who's just absolutely changed the lives of gang members in Los Angeles. It's an extraordinary film. There's so many. There's so many great docs. I just had Jeff Fortzig on my show. In fact, it's on. We just released this episode, and I see that our social media person just posted it. Amazing. I highly recommend watching this episode. He made the film The Devil and Daniel Johnston, and that's about Daniel Johnston, who's an extraordinary artist. And Jeff, in his own right, is extraordinary, and he's pushing the boundaries. He's making films that really stylistically blaze a trail. So and if you watch BYOD, you will actually see what I mean, because it's a retrospective of his work. It's not just about The Devil and Daniel Johnston. You'll see a little bit of The Real Rocky, a film he made about the real Rocky, and a short he made, and he goes into the style.
Was that on the 30 for 30, the ESPN series?
Yeah, and then he made this film about the dude, Jeff, Jeff Dowd, the real dude, the Big Lebowski dude.
Yeah.
He made a short, and some of the vignettes and things that he does, he explains, and we show them on this episode. And that's why I love doing the show, because I never really understood just how far Jeff was innovating inside documentary. It was quite remarkable. So I highly recommend BYOD for that show right now. And then Eugene Jarecki, who's the only other person to win Sundance twice. He won last year, I think, for the second time. Incredible filmmaker. He won for The House I Live In, which really exposes the $1 trillion war on drugs. That's total bullshit. So I hope I can curse on your radio show.
Curse, yeah, absolutely, especially around
that topic. I'm allowed.
All right, so let's give out some destinations here. If people want to jump in on your Kickstarter, I've got the link on the show page, but why don't you go ahead and give a verbal where they can do that?
Well, I'm at Ondi Timoner on Twitter, ONDITIM as in Mary, ON as in Nancy, ER. And I definitely am tweeting and retweeting lots of Twitter love about this. Also on Facebook, and we have a fan page on Facebook, and we are a total disruption on Facebook. On Kickstarter, you would just go to search projects and search for A Total Disruption at Kickstarter.com.
Okay. And your documentary channel, where can they find that?
And that is on the lip.tv. Again, you can access that through my Facebook page, Facebook fan page, or BYOD, Bring Your Own Doc, has its own Facebook page, but it's on the lip.tv, which is a really great network of talk shows. There's another show on there called Media Mayhem that's really worth watching as well. And so that's long-form talk shows on the web, and there's podcasts of that as well. And then we do cut-downs that the Young Turks Network puts out for us in a partnership.
Okay.
Yeah. So BYOD and Jeff Wertzig is the new episode, and I recommend it for any filmmakers out there. Check it out, for sure.
Well, great. Well, Ondi, I know that you're incredibly busy with all these projects, so taking an hour of your time out to be here on the show, I really appreciate that. And
thank you so much for having me on. I thought it was a wonderful conversation. So.
Yeah, I wish you all the best, and looking forward to seeing what you do with the Total Disruption and when you complete your Kickstarter, because I know it's going to happen. It's going to happen soon. So you take care, Ondi, and we'll keep our eye on you and support you the best we can, okay?
Thank you. Thanks so much, Robert. Best of luck to you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That is Ondi Timoner, visionary filmmaker and force of nature. And she's got a 9-year-old son, and she is really involved in his life. Trust me, I see pictures on Facebook. So that's what you can do with a life, people. You know, you can use your life force in a way that can be incredibly impactful and positive, and touch other people's lives and contribute to a culture that we're all experiencing and evolving with. And hopefully it's the one that we like and want to be a part of, not the one that is chosen for us and puts us in a pen and looks a lot more like Josh Harris's vision of the future and a lot less like Ondi's. So I want to thank Ondi again for being a part of today's broadcast, and you know where to find her. And I want to thank a man called Clay for being on the show and talking about his creative process as well. I'll be back on Monday with the mashup, and I have a couple of interesting guests lined up in the not-too-distant future. You don't want to miss them. And I probably will be at some point starting my own Kickstarter venture as well. Why? Because I've been inspired to do so, and I need to expand what I do and do some more interesting things with it, and include things like video to go along with the radio, and bring you more guests and more information and more tools for you to make sense out of this completely topsy-turvy and insane world. while keeping yourself healthy and happy at the same time. You know the drill. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to say what's possible. I want to thank everybody in the chat room for hanging out and making it a party in there. Keeping our good friend Enla in our wishes as she goes through kind of a intense experience with her mom. And that's about it. I'll see you guys on Monday. Have an amazing weekend. Here's Philip K. Dick. Adios.
We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.